Hello everyone, my name is Chintan and today we are going to be talking about your 30-day study plan for the Symbiosis entrance test for the SET. Now we are going to divide these 30 days into 5 different parts. The first part is going to be your day 1 and day 2. The next 28 days, which are your 4 weeks, will be divided as the first week, second week, third week and 4 week. And then we'll delve deeper into what is expected from you in these 4 weeks. Let's talk about the first 2 days. Now, in the first 2 days, it is very important to take measure of what you're actually preparing for. And therefore, it is very important to know the paper pattern and what areas are important to be tackled. Now, for this, let's look at the paper pattern followed by the past year trends. The paper pattern for SET is simple. There are 60 questions to be solved in 60 minutes. These 60 questions are divided in 4 different sections. The first is General English. General English has 16 questions. The next is Quantitative. Quantitative also has 16 questions. The third is General Awareness, which is your common GK, which again has 16 questions, and the remaining 12 questions are from a 4th section, which is Analytical and Logical Reasoning. Now, given the past trends, a good score is anywhere around 42 to 45. Now, how do you manage to get the score? So, continuing those trends, we've identified that in the General English section, you can easily score around 12 marks. In your Quantitative section, it is important that you score around 12 to 13, ensuring that you have 25 marks in all till now. The next section, which is a General Awareness, is fairly difficult because the syllabus is vast. There's no limit to from where the questions can be asked from. And therefore, around a 9 question target is fair enough. 9 out of 16 is not difficult, taking our overall total to 34. And therefore, the remaining 8 or 9 marks that you are targeting should come from your logical reasoning, which is again not difficult as seen in the previous trends, which makes it 12 from General English, 13 from Quantitative, around 9 or 10 from your General Awareness, and another 9 marks from your logical reasoning. So this is the target that you are setting out with. What I would suggest is, now, before you start your preparation, give one mock test to set a benchmark for yourself. And that is where we get into the first week of our preparation, where we start with giving a mock test to just get a benchmark, just get to know the paper pattern, get a feel of the exam, get some experience, and then that is where we start our preparation from. Now, your first entire week is going to be dependent on 3 simple things. The first is, you should know what topics are your strengths. The second is, you should know what topics are your weaknesses. And the third is, you need to take measure of your accuracy in general, because the entire first week that we are going to be dividing is going to be focused only on improving your accuracy. So it could mean that maybe we are taking a hit on the time, but we'll cover that up in the next week. So for now, your entire focus should only and only be on one thing, which is getting the question correct. So even if your overall attempts are, let's say, 5 questions less than 60, I'm okay, as long as your accuracy is as high as you can go. Now, to improve your accuracy, it is important to first know what are my strengths, what are the topics that I need to be good at, and ensure that you're getting at least a 90 to 100% accuracy from that. Then you come to the topics where you're weak. Now, from your weak topics, it is important to identify where are you leaking the marks. And that is where you'll eventually improve your accuracy. Because see, understand this. Since there is no negative in the SET, you are expected to attempt all 60 questions. And if you are attempting all the questions, it's all about maximizing your accuracy. And therefore, more your accuracy, the better it is for you. Now, from the weaker topics that you have, make sure that you identify the ones which you can completely solve in a couple of days, or let's say 3 days at max. So in 3 to 4 days, make sure that you're completing your weaknesses, you're getting a hold of your weaknesses, and the remaining 3 days of the first week are spent on the strengths, and cumulatively you're improving your accuracy. Once you have your accuracy, what it does is it gives you a psychological edge. It also kind of makes you confident to attempt the exam, knowing that my accuracy is good and therefore I only attempt when I'm sure about it. Coming to the next week, what we are going to do is the next week is entirely going to be focused on improving your speed. See, what we've smartly done is, in the first week, we've built our confidence to a point where I know I'll only attempt when I'm correct. And therefore, increasing the speed is only about finding smart cuts in the questions and eventually letting go of the questions. See, this is very important. This week is going to define your entire attempt. SET is not about getting as many questions correct. Obviously, yes it is, but it is more important and more focused on which questions you let go. See, when it's a time sensitive matter, you have to ensure that you're not wasting time on any other questions. And therefore, in this week, we are only going to focus on two aspects. The first aspect will be, where do I need to spend more time? Because there are going to be questions which you left thinking that, acha, this was difficult, but ideally it was easy. At the same time, you would have spent time on such questions which were actually very difficult, but you thought they were easy and you spent a lot of time there. So the two aspects are, one, identifying where I can save time from, and second, identifying where I need to give more time on. And therefore, with a proper hold on your strengths and the weaknesses, I can actually smartly divide my time as 4 days and 3 days. 4 days on saving the time and 3 days eventually applying that time to wherever I'm weak. So remember the first test that we had taken in the first week? Now, after that first week, the next time when we are actually going to take a test is going to be in the third week directly. In the first and the second week, you can always just take sectional tests, just take area tests, just focus on an individual section, but not the entire test as a whole, because we are not yet there. We are not yet ready for the entire battle. And therefore, third week is where we are going to combine the learnings of the first week and the learnings of the second week and cumulatively try to enhance our scores. Now, here is where you might face a little difficulty. So, for the first 2 or 3 days, you will just try out the strategy in one exam. Then, the next 3 days or the 4 days of the week is where we'll analyze the test, identify the mistakes that we are making, and then eventually apply it again on one more exam. Because our fourth week is completely going to be about refinement. And this refinement is going to come from the analysis that we've done. I cannot emphasize enough on the fact that if you're giving a 1 hour exam, only a 1 hour analysis is not going to be enough. You will at least have to give 2 hours for your analysis. Because understand, the analysis is not only for the questions that were wrong, it's also for the questions that you got correct or the questions that you did not attempt. Remember, I told you that we need to also save time somewhere. This is where the analysis part comes into picture. See, I'm okay with you making more mistakes or rather newer mistakes in every test, as long as you're not repeating the mistakes. So therefore, your time management, your accuracy will, when come together, make some mistakes. And that is where you have to now only and only work on your mistakes, not on the content, because we've already done that in the first week. So your fourth week is going to be all about refinement, and we are just going to do mistake proofing. So now, we've already spoken about the 4 weeks. Let's talk about some general pointers that you need to keep in mind for this entire month. First thing, we also have 16 questions for GK. We've not spoken about GK per se, because GK is something which is a continuous process. It doesn't really believe in your week process. And therefore, all 30 days, you have to make it a point that you're reading your newspapers. At the same time, you're following the GK zone that we have, where you're again and again just going over your static GK. Because the last year, we had 11 questions from static GK and 5 from current affairs. And therefore, your static GK also needs to be important. Now, coming to the second thing. Understand that SET is kind of a T20 match. Because here, this is where time is crucial. You cannot afford to lose even a single minute. And therefore, your entire focus has to be on time management. See, when you go through your speed wala week, you will ensure that you're saving time. But at the same time, you need to build that ability to let go of certain questions. See, there will always be some baits that the paper setter has put in so that you waste a lot of time there. And that is why it becomes important to build the capability where you understand that I have to leave this question out. And that is important. The third thing is practice, practice, practice. Every single day of this entire month, you should be practicing at least 10 to 12 questions per topic. And at least 2 to 3 RCs in general English and GK I've already spoken about. For your logical reasoning part, you need to make sure that for logical reasoning, your verbal reasoning is good and your coding decoding is good. Again, follow the same pattern. 10 to 20 questions every day is what you need to go for. Now, let's talk about the tests. Now, here is where your strategy comes into the picture. You have 7 total tests. Let's say we've given 1 test at the start. Now, I have 6 tests in hand. These 6 tests should be divided as 3 tests before the first attempt and 3 tests before the second attempt in the case that you're giving both the attempts. If you're only giving one, then all the 6 attempts should be given before that particular attempt. Now, make sure that you're giving these attempts in the exact same time slot that you have your exam. Now, while taking these tests, keep in mind that your admit cards are going to be coming out around 25th of April for the first slot and 30th of April for the second slot, which means you're left with a good 11 days of time to attempt your tests. A prominent and a good strategy would be if you're giving all your exams in the exact same time slot that you have your actual exam, just so that your body gets used to it. And therefore, 3 attempts before the first and 3 attempts before the second is what you should be giving for your mocks. Unless you're giving only 1 attempt, in which case all the exams should be given before that attempt on consecutive days in that exact time slot. See, understand this, that for the second slot, if you're also giving the first, even that is a mock test. And therefore, you kind of have additional practice. And here, giving the test is important. But there's one more thing that is more important, which is analysis of the mocks. I've already spoken about the analysis, but let me again repeat the same thing. Giving the tests is not going to get the results. It's also about analysis. It's about identifying where we are making the mistakes, and your analysis is what is going to define if you've used these 30 days well or you've not just used it at all. And therefore, your analysis becomes important in terms of identifying your weaknesses and also ensuring that you're scoring where your strengths are. If you're not getting the scores from your strengths, then there's something wrong with your strengths. And therefore, your analysis will clear out all these issues. Make sure that you make the most of these 30 days. Thank you so much and all the best.